Hi guys! So for my final assignment, the two artifacts I chose to look at were Grammar Fair and the Parent-Teacher Conference simulation. So for Grammar Fair, I said that Grammar Fair connects to Standard 4, which is about content knowledge. It says that the teacher understands the central concepts, tools of inquiry, and structures of the discipline he or she teaches, and creates learning experiences that make the aspects of the discipline accessible and meaningful for learners. So for Grammar Fair, I chose to teach students about the difference between than and then. So for this, I followed the I do, we do, you do model. So for I do, I just kind of gave a definition of than and a definition of then. I read over some examples with the students, and I gave some tips and tricks on how to remember when to use which word. For the we do, I wrote out sentences in the big part in the center of my triboard, and I had students stick the correct word that they thought went with the sentence, whether it be there or then, to complete the sentence. And then for you do, I just gave students a piece of paper and I gave them the ability to write two sentences that they wanted, one with than and one with then. And then I collected them, I reviewed them as they finished to make sure that they really got it down. It was a good way for me to check to make sure that what I was teaching made sense. So the reason I think that it connects to Standard 4 about content knowledge is because Grammar Fair is all about taking a concept or a content area, so grammar, and putting it into a lesson that was meaningful and engaging for students to help them learn. So with this, I had to take the concept of than and then, which can be tough for some students, and I had to make sure I understood it and then put it in a way and present it in a way that made my students understand it. So through this, I had to make sure it was understandable and engaging. It was a different style of teaching, so I think that went really well. It was more meaningful. I think a lot of people think grammar can just be very dry, but Grammar Fair took that area and made it meaningful to students. I think one reason students liked it is because it was fun, it was engaging, it was hands-on. So Grammar Fair really connects with Standard 4 content knowledge because it looks at taking that central concept of grammar and making it meaningful for learners and giving them a learning experience that stands out so they really do understand it. I definitely think that the Grammar Fair is something that has helped me grow as a teacher. It gave me a lot of ideas on how to teach creatively. I think, like I said, grammar can be kind of tough sometimes to make students want to learn and make them engaged, but I think through Grammar Fair it was really successful. Another thing I thought about doing is having my students do their own Grammar Fair. So with our Grammar Fair, it was college students teaching elementary school kids about grammar. But depending on what classroom grade I'm in, I was thinking about having my students teach each other the grammar rules through a mini Grammar Fair lesson. I think that peer-on-peer education is extremely beneficial. So I think that that's one way to really ensure meaningful learning. So this Grammar Fair also taught me a lot about engagement and how to make students engaged, and I think that's huge. I think it's something we take for granted and just say, oh, we're going to engage the student, but how are you going to do it? And Grammar Fair made me think a lot about that. But another huge growth that it brought me through as a teacher is about differentiation. I know in our bigger lesson plans when we write in classes, we talk a lot about differentiation, but for Grammar Fair, I wasn't really thinking about it. So the second group I had, they really struggled with it, and I felt unprepared because I didn't have a backup plan. I just was like, oh, they're going to learn this, and I didn't have that differentiation piece kind of accessible. I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't prepared for it. So Grammar Fair really taught me a lot and made me grow as a teacher, both in ways that I can improve and things that I did well. So for my next standard, it was the Parent-Teacher Conference simulation. And I connected that to Standard 9. Standard 9 is about reflection and continuous growth. So that is that the teacher is a reflective practitioner who uses evidence to continually evaluate his or her practice, particularly the effects of his or her choices and actions on others, such as students, families, and other professionals in the learning community, and adapts practices to meet the needs of each learner. So for the parent-teacher simulation, I was working as the teacher, and I had to meet with Chris's mom. So with that, after the simulation, it was really a time for reflection, both with the parent as well as with myself through that worksheet that we did. I had to reflect on what went well, what didn't go well, what I could improve on, what I should keep doing. And the big thing I learned through that is parent-teacher conferences aren't just reflecting on this is what your student or your child could be doing better. It's also what could I be doing better as a teacher to reach the needs of the learner. So I think that the parent-teacher simulation really hit on Content Standard 9 because it's the teacher being reflective of who they are as a teacher and how what they're doing as a teacher affects the lives of the students and the families. And we saw that firsthand in the simulation, how what I was doing as a teacher was affecting Chris, which was affecting how his mom reacted and how his mom handled the situation. So I really think that the simulation did a great job at hitting on Standard 9. There are so many ways that I'll use that simulation to help me grow as a teacher and how it's important to me as a teacher. Obviously, I had parent-teacher conferences when I was a student, but I've never been in the role where I had to conduct one as a teacher. So this was a really big learning experience for me, and it's a huge part of what being a teacher is. So I kind of think parent-teacher conferences are a scary aspect of teaching, especially when you're a new teacher. So being able to meet with families and reflect on the whole picture, such as the student, the parents, me as a teacher, will really help me grow. And this kind of gave me that glimpse I needed of this is what a parent-teacher conference is. And how am I going to take what I see in the classroom and explain that to a parent. So I really think the simulation gave a great inside look on how to better handle parent-teacher conferences in general. So those were my two standards, the grammar fair and the simulation for my final. Thanks!